All right, we got the weightlifting scoop. This is Travis Cooper, and I got Glenn Pendlay here. We're going to talk about split jerk versus power jerk.
And we're probably going to argue.
I don't know if it'll get too heated, but we do have some good news. We just got a call from Phil Andrews of USA Weightlifting. So as far as Team MDUSA goes, I just accepted my invitation to compete at the World Championships, and so did Morgan King. So.
Yeah, we had a week or so of kind of wondering if Morgan was on. She should have been on, but you never, until you get the official, since she's the last qualifier, until you get the official word, there's always something, at least for me, in the back of my head saying, I don't want to jump the gun and announce it. But yeah, she accepted her invitation, so she's definitely on. So very happy that we got two of our lifters on the world team.
Yeah, so there's a lot of cool things going on. There's potentially going to be a camp out at the OTC with some of the members, so people who can do that should be fun. And I guess we're going to head over to Poland for like 10 days or so. So it's going to be an interesting into the year. Yeah,
it will be an interesting fall. Travis and I are going to Australia for a couple of weeks and coming back, training for about 5 or 6 weeks back here in the States. And the training should be really fun over in Australia. We've got a couple of the members of the Commonwealth team that are going to train with us a little bit. And I think everything's set up pretty good for Travis to have a good couple of weeks of training over there, and then a long flight back to training here for a month, and a camp at the OTC, and then we will be going to Poland.
So split jerk versus power jerk, getting to the topic for today. What do you think? We've had a lot of questions on YouTube. Why do people choose what style of jerk they're going to do? And I mean, I guess we can't forget about the squat jerk, but that's a little less common.
I think that a large proportion of people are going to end up being better served by split jerking, simply because most people don't have the flexibility requirements to effectively ever power jerk as well as they split jerk. And so I prefer to teach everyone to split jerk from the start. And then if it really becomes apparent that that's not working and they're good at the power jerk, we may move to that. I like everybody to do a certain amount of power jerking in their training. I think it's good practice for getting the bar back behind your head. But I really feel that well over 50% of people will eventually be able to split jerk a lot more than they can power jerk. And Travis disagrees, I can already tell.
Well, I don't know. I think your potential to power jerk and split jerk is about the same. I don't think you have more potential to split jerk, more weight per se. But I do think that the split jerk gives you a little more leeway in terms of room for error, margin for error.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right. And it also allows you, even if you're somewhat fatigued or something like that, to make jerks. And one problem I have with the power jerk is some people, even that are really, really good power jerkers, and even, not everybody, but quite a few, people that can do, tremendous, power jerks from blocks or whatever. It's not there when they stand up with that third attempt heavy clean and struggle to stand up. The jerk just isn't even close. And I think it's more likely to fail in competition for the vast majority of lifters than a split.
So the pros of a split jerk is just basically that you have more margin for error. Is that right? Is there any others?
Well, I think more margin for error is one, and then I think even the bigger one is it does not require the same flexibility in the shoulders and whatnot as a power jerk, and a lot of people lack that.
So a power jerk, the pros would be that you don't have to bring your feet back together. As soon as you get it overhead, you just extend at the kneecaps and the hip, and you're finished with the lift.
It's definitely simpler. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. So, maybe at the beginning phases, teaching the power jerk while you're concentrating on snatch and for the CrossFitters. Now, if I'm coaching CrossFitters and they don't really have aspirations to be weightlifters, I just pretty much tell them, don't worry about the split jerk unless they just really suck at power jerks, because it's faster. A lot of CrossFit workouts, you're trying to go for the fastest
and it
time.
Probably doesn't require the same amount of energy per rep if you're using light weights.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, if I was trying to get somebody to jerk, 135 pounds or 60 kilos, as fast as I could for, 30 reps, I think you're right. I think where you're going is that the split jerk would be the more economical alternative.
Yeah, so definitely for most CrossFitters out there, I just teach them the power jerk. And, I mean, there's definitely, like, some technique behind the power jerk. A lot of people just kind of do it like when they start power jerking, it's almost like a push press. You certainly still want to drive the bar the same way and push yourself back under. And kind of like your catch position should be like similar to position 1 in the snatch that Glenn teaches.
Yeah, it's funny, but this is like something I used to expound on a lot. I haven't talked about it in quite a while, but there are two kinds of people in weightlifting. If you divide them as far as how they approach getting the bar over their head, there's pressers and there's jerkers. And I've certainly coached people that when we were doing push presses, if the weight got too heavy, they would inevitably turn it into a push jerk instead of a push press. They would dip under those last couple of reps on a set of 5 because they couldn't press them out, so they just naturally went under them. They're perfectly legal and fine, power jerk with it. On the other hand, I would put myself in this camp definitely. There are people that inevitably, as the jerk gets heavier, they're more and more prone to press it out, and if they try to power jerk heavy, they are inevitably going to press them out. And so if you are one of those people that just naturally goes under more naturally than you push out, I think that would make it more likely that you would be a good push jerker.
So Tom Sroka, I think he's an interesting example because he came here and he was a bad jerker. He's an awesome push presser. He was bad at the split jerk. But he kind of went through a phase where it was like, okay, we're going to try to power jerk. And obviously he didn't end out being a power jerker. But I do think what happened is those power jerks taught him to push himself back under the bar. And that really helped his jerk. He's actually a pretty dang good jerker now.
Yeah, I would agree that people who have trouble locking the elbows cleanly and getting the bar behind the head, which of course is a huge part of locking the elbows cleanly. Anytime you push it out front or have your head behind the bar, you're going to be more likely to press out. It's that is so much more difficult to do for people that don't have just really superior flexibility. It's more difficult for them to do that when they're push jerking than when they're split jerking. So I think practicing on the push jerk or the power jerk can enable them to do that easier on the split. I think it's a great training exercise even for people that are split jerkers.
Now, as we move forward in weightlifting, there's an argument to be made that everyone's going to be a squat jerker in the future. Now, how possibly do you think that is to happen?
Well, the argument for it would be that, when the squat, snatch, and squat clean, instead of the old style of splitting under, when that first came into fashion, I guess you'd say or when it first appeared, a lot of people said, oh, most people can't do that. They don't have the flexibility or the balance or whatever. And so we may have a few people doing that, but most people are always going to split. Well, now we know that nobody splits. Squatting under is much more effective. And that's how everybody does it. So you could say that, well, it happened with the clean and a snatch. It's the same thing's going to happen with the jerk because obviously you don't have to push the bar as high if you squat jerk. I don't agree with that, and I don't agree with it for 2 reasons. Number one is that even with a split, a lot of people can jerk more than they can clean.
Do you think everyone's potential to jerk more if their technique is good and their strength has been evenly worked, that they would have more potential to split jerk more than they squat clean?
That's an impossible. I can't answer that question. Lynn Jones used to say that if you can clean it, you're physically capable of jerking it if you have enough courage. I think there's an argument to be made for that, but I certainly wouldn't argue it, but I can see the argument. But number one, a lot of clean and jerk numbers would not go up simply because the jerk isn't the weak point. So it doesn't matter how you jerk it. It's how heavy your clean is. Number two, you just don't see a lot of people, besides a lot of Asians it seems like, that have the flexibility to squat jerk. And so that's just something that some people I don't think are ever going to be able to do very well.
Well, that's a developed thing. If you started squat jerking as soon as you came into the gym, they would have the flexibility because they would be doing hundreds and hundreds of reps in that style.
I think that's an argument. I'm not sure I totally buy into it, but I think that's an argument. I see if that sort of thing ever if weightlifting goes that direction, it's going to be a long time in the future. I would not have somebody come in and just teach them to split, or just teach them to squat jerk or power jerk, just because I think I guess it's the way it is now. When people first started to squat under snatches, it's unproven, and I'm not gonna point somebody's career down that path when I really don't know for sure, if they're going to be able to effectively do it.
So, from my perspective personally, I think you should definitely try to split jerk because you have more leeway, margin for error. And that's important in competition to be consistent. But if I see that someone is not split jerking well, then I'll have them power jerk for a period of time, pretty much like Tom did, and then maybe try the split jerk eventually if that doesn't work out. And usually that period of power jerk can actually help their split jerk a lot.
Yeah, I don't think emphasizing the power jerk for a while. Well, I don't think for most people it's ever going to replace splitting. It's not going to hurt your split jerk, that's for sure. If anything, it'll help it.
And then some people, when they move back to the split jerk, it just isn't working out even after the power jerking phase. So then they'll just stay power jerkers. It will be interesting to see over the next 20 years or so if squat jerking starts to become more prevalent in the sport, because you don't have to push the bars high, you don't have to drive the bars high, but are you limited by your jerk or your clean?
I'll tell you one interesting little thing is that I noticed that Morgan just had a little back spasm, and she's wanting to do power jerks instead of split because it doesn't kind of twist her a little bit. It doesn't aggravate her back. And I noticed today she was doing some pretty awesome power jerks.
Oh yeah.
Maybe Morgan will be a power jerker by the time Worlds comes around.
Definitely requires that shoulder flexibility. So people who can't get that bar behind their head, Tim Rawlings on our team, he's got really tight shoulders. And we've had to stretch his shoulders out a good bit, but he's still getting the bar just a little in front of his head. So he's able to split jerk, but I bet if we had him do some squat jerks or power jerks, he would have a much tougher time making the weights. So that might actually be a way to get his shoulders more flexible. So I think at the end of the day, at least at this point in time, split jerk is the best way to go. But squat jerk and power jerk are great auxiliary exercises to work on flexibility, and for some people it ends up being the method for them. I
agree with everything you just said.
Well,
Turns
cool.
out we're not going to fight to the death after all.
Well, anyways, guys, so like we said, me and Morgan just accepted our invitation to the World Championships, so we'll be training really hard for that to represent Team MDUSA as well as Team USA. And tweet us with your questions at WLiftingScoop, and we'll try to give you more of our opinions like this one. Thanks.